We signed a binding offtake agreement with Hyundai Kia earlier this year. So that was, I think the first of its kind in the world that an OEM like that has actually put its name to a rare earth processor.
Hello, welcome to Assay TV. Today I'm joined once again by Gavin Lockyer, who is Managing Director of Arafura Rare Earths. Gavin, fantastic to see you once again. We're going to have a little bit of a recap of the year. Very exciting year for Arafura as you're developing there your Nolans Rare Earths project in the Northern Territory of Australia. Shovel-ready project. But before we get going on the project itself, let's talk a little bit about the rare earths market at the moment. Everyone's talking about critical minerals, and there's nothing more critical for the energy transition than rare earth elements, particularly NdPr, which is what you've got there at Nolans. Give us your little thoughts on how the critical minerals and rare earth market has shaped up in 2022.
Yeah, I think 2022 has been a real game changer for the critical minerals sector, and in particular the rare earth sector. I think there's been a real acknowledgement from not just governments now globally, but obviously OEMs that they need to secure their supply chains. And so there's been a lot of focus on securing NdPr, oxides and metals, as you said. And I guess, testament to that is the fact that we signed an binding offtake agreement with Hyundai Kia earlier this year. So that was, I think the first of its kind in the world that an OEM like that has actually put its name to a rare earth processor.
And remind us, I mean, the NdPr, when Hyundai are using them, what are they using them for?
So it's the backbone of rare earth magnets, or high performing permanent magnets, which go into basically the drivetrain. So electric motors have about 1 kilogram of rare earth magnet, and about 1/3 of that is NdPr oxide. They also go into other motors within the automobile, so your electric brakes, your electric seats, windscreen wipers, power steering, etc., etc. So there's probably another 1 kilogram of magnet all up in those applications.
And also renewable energy, wind turbines, they need magnets as well, don't they?
Yeah, look, the offshore wind turbines use a significant portion of the magnets. They like them because they are much lower maintenance than a normal regular motor, and so in offshore wind, it's really advantageous to use rare earth magnets in. And again, that was evidenced earlier this year when we signed a non-binding agreement with General Electric Renewable Energy.
Fantastic, and obviously, they're one of the leading players in the wind turbines, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a handful of groups that are of that scale around the world, and we're extremely proud to potentially have them on board as a binding customer, but more importantly, as an strategic equity partner as well.
And in terms of NdPr production, predominantly in the past this has been dominated by China. But what are you seeing in terms of regional governments, the US, the EU, Australia, Japan, trying to secure their own supply chains?
Look, there's certainly been a lot of push from governments globally into this sector. What has taken a long time for them to realise, and I'm still not sure that they've got it, is that these projects take a while to develop. You can't just go out and find an engineering firm and say, build me a gold plant like that one over there, because we've got same grade, same mineralogy. Every rare earth deposit is different and has a slightly different flow sheet. So it does take time to bring new supply on board. Most analysts are saying that by 2030 we need another 11 Nolans bores just to keep up with current demand. And we're seeing some good progress from a number of developers, but there's also, I guess excitingly for the industry, a lot of new exploration players coming on board, but they're going to be a little way away, I would suspect.
So we need these projects to start getting going. In terms of Nolans, I see you've secured quite a large funding package recently, $121 million. Do you want to tell us a little bit about who was involved with that?
Yeah, for sure. Look, we thought, or we felt that just before Christmas we might sort of test the market and see what the appetite was, because if it was there, and we suspected it was, then it would allow us to really start hitting the ground running in January next year, when sort of the southern hemisphere comes back from Christmas break. And so we tested the market, and we had previously had an investment from Hancock Prospecting, and so we approached them, and we were really pleased when they came back and said, look, they wanted to take a substantial interest in the company. Obviously, they've got a wealth of experience in project development. So it's not just their balance sheet we're chasing. We'll take expertise as well.
Absolutely. And that was on the back. You also had another sort of 41 million, I think it was, raised in August. So a good year for raising money for the company, yeah?
Yeah, it has been. And I'm really pleased to say that we've been doing it at progressively increased amounts too. We're not sort of raising money at share prices that were lower than the previous raise. And look, I think the quality of the investors that we've brought on, I think the quality of the off-takers that we've brought on has really been now reflective in our market cap, which started in the sort of 400 million range earlier this year. And I think as of yesterday, we went over the 1 billion Australian dollar market cap.
And just remind our viewers, in terms of the resources you've got there at Nolans, what have you delineated so far?
So a JORC compliant resource and ore reserve to sustain an operation of around 38 years. But we do know from deeper drilling that there's further mineralisation at depth, so it hasn't been closed off at depth. But we figured 40 years was probably enough to start with, despite the fact that the geos would probably like us to keep drilling. We felt that all that money would be better used in project development and securing the funding. So, it's a massive resource. It's a game changer for the region, for Central Australia. It will obviously provide many jobs in the region and obviously economic growth for the region as well.
And in terms of your sort of permitting on the project, that's been progressing well as well, yeah?
Yes, just last month the NT provided sort of the final access agreements for various bits and pieces around roads and other non-processing infrastructure, which is great. And we've got our environmental approvals in place, and also our native title agreement in place. So ready to go.
Excellent. And in terms of the project finance, where are you at with that?
Look, we received earlier this year a modern manufacturing initiative for $30 million from the Australian government. That is specifically for the back end of the processing plant, so the rare earth oxide plant. And that also opens up opportunities for us to be able to bring in other feedstocks as well to expand potentially production in this area using other projects' material if it's available. But in terms of the wider funding, obviously the capital raise we've just done has really put some cornerstone investors in there, which we believe will be supportive for the much larger capital raising coming by the middle of next year. We've appointed the mandated leader rangers earlier this year on the lending side, and that was a combination of SocGen and NAB. And those discussions are progressing as we speak. In fact, there's a lenders meeting going on in Sydney yesterday and today, where all the lenders, including groups like K-Shaw, which is the Korean government export credit agency, Export Finance Australia, NAIF, and obviously our banks, are all there working through the term sheets and what have you for the packaging up of the debt. We're hoping that again will all accumulate alongside the equity by the middle of next year.
What is the actual initial capex requirement?
So it's about 1.6 just in capital. That includes some contingency, and we'll probably obviously need a cost overrun facility there. So you're probably looking at about 1.8 all up Aussie.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that as that develops next year. But in terms of the sort of the schedule of things moving forward, getting the project going, what have you got in plans?
Well, look, we'll in January we're planning to start ordering some long lead equipment items, which we think are on critical path now. We'll also start some on-country earthworks in preparation for the camp, for the bore fields, and for the access roads. We'll continue on, obviously, with the funding discussions, both at equity level, with private equity groups on potential project sell down or other structural changes. And, we'll continue with speaking with our cornerstone new equity partners in terms of how we might best develop this project for all shareholders.
And in terms of your development plans, obviously ESG, very critical for these sort of projects. People want, these magnets for the energy transition, but they also want them to produce as cleanly as possible. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in that space.
Yeah, look, one of the selling points for our project is that we're doing all the processing, the mining and the processing at a single site, which means that all the waste is dealt with from the place from which it was extracted. So that certainly has pluses for our customers. GE in particular really like the fact that we're doing everything at a single site, and we're able to rehabilitate and cost that in at site. We're not moving material around countries, different jurisdictions. And obviously most of your subscribers would know there is some radioactive elements associated with rare earths. So all of that is being dealt with at site. So that's a big positive. The other things we're looking to do are really around our energy consumption at site. We'll initially start up using gas and diesel, but we've got plans to head towards a net zero by 2050, and that'll incorporate using solar and other technologies as the operation gets up and running and becomes more and more de-risked. The other thing that we're also doing is we've got we're working with a group here in Western Australia called Source Certain, and they've developed some IP around, actually, it's almost like blockchain technology, whereby we will be able to give our customer a line of sight back to the block of ore from which it came from back at Nolans Bore. So that's certainly something that meets a lot of ESG expectations, particularly in Europe.
Excellent. And in terms of sort of providing jobs for local community, what's happening there?
Look, we've got a range of measures going on at the moment. We've got an ICN, which is a platform that businesses in the region can access. They can express their interest in the project and in becoming a supplier. We're working with the Land Council, the Central Land Council, on potential job opportunities. And more broadly, I think now that we're getting more certainty around the funding, we'll start some other schemes up within the Alice Springs and Northern Territory region, targeting longer term prospects for locals, so that they don't have to leave the region to go and find a job.
Excellent. Well, that's been a real transformational year, I think, for the company there in 2022, and we look forward to seeing how things develop in 2023 as you get this project up and running, hopefully. But thank you very much for joining us today on Assay TV.
Thanks very much for having me again, and Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Gavin.